The Green 19 podcast presents The Final Out.
The Brewers were unstoppable in the first inning. They humiliated the Cubs, piling up run onto the board, run after run, until the stadium shook with disbelief. 13-0 before the third out. The crowd was hysterical, laughing, cheering, brats flying, beer spilling everywhere. Joe pounded Thomas on the back, grinning like a kid. "We'll be talking about this one forever," he shouted. Deshaun screamed until his voice cracked. James even smiled for once, and Alex threw arms in the air, flushed with excitement. But as the inning ended, the Brewers jogged off the field. Something shifted. The cheers didn't sound like normal cheers anymore. The rhythm was too exact, too uniform. Like 30,000 chanting fans with the same lungs. It grew louder, sharper, until on the hair of Thomas's neck stood up. James frowned. "That doesn't sound right." Before anyone could answer, Alex gagged. His beer slipped from his hand, spilling across the concrete. He doubled over, coughing, hacking up something thick and black. Blood and teeth clattered against the ground. His back arched with a crack that echoed over the cheering. When he lifted his head, his eyes were milk white, his jaw torn open too wide. Skin split at the corners of his mouth. He let out a sound that wasn't human. Leapt into the roar ahead, tearing into a man's throat in a fountain of blood. The section erupted in chaos. Fans screamed, trampled over, crushed children beneath them. Nachos scattered like entrails. Beer cups splashed across people's faces as they fought to escape. Joe grabbed James. Thomas grabbed Alex's arm, trying to pull him back. But Alex whipped around his blood-soaked face too wide. He hissed a noise that made Thomas's stomach lurch.
"Don't leave me."
"Move!" Joe bellowed, dragging both boys. Deshaun smashed a fan in the face just to clear space, pulling Thomas by the collar as the whole section collapsed into a nightmare. The concourse was worse. People lying on the ground, bodies twisting and splitting. A woman's chest burst outward, ribs like knives. A vendor's jaw unhinged and split into three. A Cubs fan climbed the wall, legs snapping backwards as he scuttled like an insect. Screams mixed with the wet tearing of flesh, the stench of blood and bile turning the air thick. Joe swung a souvenir bat, cracking open the skull of a lunging man. Bone shards flew. Deshaun's arm, himself, with a broken beer bottle, stabbing anything that got close. James slipped on blood, his hand landing in someone's soft, and he looked, and it was a child's glove, still attached to a severed hand. He vomited and sobbed, Thomas yanking him up. The loudspeakers screeched to life.
Bottom of the ninth begins. No one leaves until the final out is made.
The stadium gates slammed shut, locking with thunderous echoes. Alex appeared again, crawling along the ceiling, his body bent in grotesque angles. He dropped down in front of them, grinning through torn flesh. Deshaun slashed at him. Joe swung the bat, and Thomas screamed his name, but Alex didn't answer. He only laughed. Voice layered with static, he clawed at James, ripping into his arm, blood pouring out down his sleeve. Thomas hurled himself at Alex, screaming, "Fight it! It's me!" And for a split second, Alex hesitated, his ruined face twitching as something human flickered in his eyes. Then he screeched and slammed Thomas into the wall. They fought through the hallways, blood soaking their clothes, until they stumbled onto the field. The diamond was unrecognizable. The bases were loaded. with nailed down bodies chanting, "Final out, final out." The mound soaked with blood, the grass slick with gore. And standing at home plate was Joe, or someone wearing his face. It wore his brewer's cap, swung his bat, but his skin dangled loose. Its grin stretched too far. The real Joe staggered in disbelief, his boys at his side, staring at this double. The crowd roared, louder than any stadium had ever roared, their voices one monstrous howl, shaking the sky night. Final out, final out, final out. The thing rushed them. Joe met it with a scream, swinging his bat until wood splintered on bone. Deshaun dove in with the bottle, stabbing again and again. James, bleeding and pale, hurled himself at the legs to trip it, and Thomas grabbed Alex, who was twitching and snarling at his side, and shook him until his own voice broke. "You're my best friend. Don't let it win." Alex shrieked, his body twitching, jaws. Then with a howl of pure agony, he ripped himself free from whatever was inside him. His skin hung in ribbons, blood pouring down his chest, but his eyes cleared for the first time. He grabbed the thing wearing Joe's face, dragging it into the dirt, screaming through blood, "I got it! Finish it!" Joe lifted the shattered bat high, Thomas and James holding the monster's limbs as Alex pinned it, and with a roar, Joe drove the splintered wood straight through its skull. The thing writhed, shrieking, then collapsed, twitching once before going still. Silence. The crowd of infected froze. The scoreboard flickered. Then the Jumbotron went dark, one by one. The twisted fans dropped lifeless to the ground, their bodies collapsing into silence until the sound of the wind remained. Thomas looked at his best friend, broken and blood-soaked, barely breathing but alive. James clutched his arm, sobbing into his sleeve. Deshaun sat against the dugout wall, his chest torn, his eyes blazing with stubborn fire. And Joe, blood dripping, body shaking, looked at his boys and whispered, "We survived." The stadium, once alive with madness, was now a graveyard. Thousands of bodies sprawled across seats and the field, the smell of death everywhere. The five of them, Thomas, Alex, Deshaun, James, and Joe, were the only ones left standing, with the sun finally rose over Milwaukee. And through they would never step inside a ballpark again. They all knew one thing. They had finished the game. When the sun finally broke over Milwaukee, the lights spilled through the shattered roof of American Family Field, shining down on a nightmare no one outside could yet imagine. The field was silent, every blade of grass matted with blood, the seats filled with thousands of corpses, slumped where they had fallen, eyes glazed, jaws slack. The smell of rotten iron drifted into the morning air. Emergency crews were the first to arrive after the gates mysteriously unlocked themselves. Reporters, police, firemen, and paramedics surged inside, cameras rolling, accepting chaos from a riot, maybe a fire. Instead, they found death. Entire families frozen in their seats, faced it, twisted in agony. Vendors with their carts overturned, chest hollowed out, a whole stadium of Milwaukee faithful, dead. And then through the blood and silence, 5 figures staggered from the dugout. Thomas limped forward first, shirt soaked red, his face hollow but alive. Alex leaned against them, wrapped into a makeshift, bandages torn from jerseys. His eyes glazed with pain but human again. Deshaun dragged himself with one arm, the other clutched to his chest, his broken bottle still in his hand, as though he refused to let go. James stumbled with his brother's help, pale and trembling, his arm tied with a strip of brewer's fabric to slow the bleeding. And behind them, Joe walked like a man, carrying the weight of hell itself, shoulders sagging, blood dripping from his hands, eyes haunted but proud. The silence of the crew broke. Shouts rang out, stretchers rushed forward, questions screamed into the air. What happened here? How are you alive? Where are the others? None of the 5 answered, because there was no way to explain, no way to describe the chanting crowd, the skin splitting, the twisted doppelgangers, the voice over the speakers demanding a final out. No one would believe them if they tried. As the paramedics guided them into waiting ambulances, Thomas looked back one last time at the scoreboard. It was still lit, still humming, so the game had been gone long enough. Across the massive screen, flickering in dying pixels, 3 words plushed in blood, red text. Game over, survivors. With the number 5. Thomas swallowed hard, clutching Alex's hand and whispering only loud enough for the others to hear. We survived. But the game isn't done with us. And as the ambulance sped away, Milwaukee woke to headlines of the worst stadium disaster in American history. But only 5 people on Earth knew the truth. The Brewers had won that night, but so had someone else.
This has been the Green 19 podcast story by Thomas Strobush. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was pretty gory. A lot more gory and bloody and whatever you want to call it than most of them, but I still hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know if I should do something like this again, and this one was a little bit longer. Yeah, just give me some ideas, guys, and I'm willing to put out whatever you want, and I will. This has been the Green 19 podcast again, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.